Hey, man.
What's up?
Have you ever heard of the mouse Utopia experiment?
I don't want to. I don't even want to. The mouse Utopia experience? No. This was that game that we used to play as kids.
What?
It was a board game.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah, Mousetrap.
Mousetrap.
Yeah, that was fun. Did you have Mousetrap?
No, I didn't.
Oh, dude, you had to set up the whole
so
thing,
bad.
and then. Oh, sorry, I forgot that my parents were richer than yours. They weren't. We were poor. We made some bad financial decisions. You know, my parents went into debt over Mousetrap, dude. My parents were like, my kid wants mouse. Your parents were wise. You're like, your parents were like, you can either go to college or get Mousetrap. My parents were like, you can do both, buddy. Yeah, and they paid the price for it. You know.
Yeah, your parents sat down and they're like, okay, we're going to the bank today. They got there and like, hey, can we take out a personal loan? And they're like, yeah, what's the reason? You know that board game
personal
Mousetrap?
Reasons. Dude, I'm not gonna tell the bank why I need the money. Do you have to tell the bank why you need the money? Can I take out a personal loan?
No, but sometimes they make conversations.
If they're like, well, so what's this for? My own business. How about that, Jerry?
I'm laundering money.
I'm gonna open a KFC. Yeah, how about with $2,000? Watch me, Jerry.
Yeah, never say never.
Legally, you have to say mice. If you're listening to this, that's the most beta thing about you. You think there's Kansas City cannibals?
Oh, 100%. There are people in the city that eat each other. And he told the farmer, he said, you're a rat farmer now.
I was the person in the Mickey suit, and they would force me to eat all the other mascots. Things I learned last night. So the mouse Utopia experiment, not experience. I said experience, which is actually the new. The mouse Utopia experience is the new section of Walt Disney World, but mouse Utopia experiment is.
It was
similar to the Stanford prison experiment.
Actually, kinda.
Have we talked about the Stanford experiment?
I don't think we have.
Yeah, well.
But it is kinda similar. So basically, it was this guy. He was an ethologist.
Is a what?
Ethologist.
I thought you said ethologist.
Ethologist.
He's an ethologist?
An ethologist, which...
ethics.
No.
Oh.
It's often confused with ethics. It's kind of similar, though. It's a study of animal behavior. Usually with, like, it's focusing on how their behavior adapts in certain circumstances.
Okay.
And so he did this. He crafted this experiment. This guy named John Calhoun in the late 50s and early 60s. And it began. So there's kind of two iterations of the experiment. We'll start with the first one. Well, actually, let's talk about the why. I watched a TED Talk
about what's your why. You know, what was John B. Calhoun's? Which I hate how you said Calhoun.
Calhoun.
What was his why?
How else would I say it? How else would I say Calhoun? Calhoun. Yeah,
but you go Calhoun.
He told me, Alex told me before this, I said, do you think we need to dampen the corners in this room and put like some sound treatment on there? He's like, that only really matters for bass. And I was like, well, I'll lower my voice. So that was an attempt.
Yeah. Also, I don't think pouring water on it's going to help. Look at that damp corner. Right?
Alex goes in here next time and we just
you see him like with a hose. Just spraying everything down.
Dampening the room.
Just dampening the room.
Yeah, that'll really mess up our outlets.
Less echoes. Oh yeah, this is bad. Yeah, our electric we're going to burn up any moment. It's pretty crazy. Hey, Alex, if we ever die while recording an episode, still release it, please. It 100%. But cut it the moment before we die.
Yeah. No, do it like those. Never mind. Calhoun.
I'm interested in the why of what you're thinking. So he does 50s. Experiments.
It's the 50s. A couple things are happening.
Yeah.
Over the past 50 years, the world has just gone insane. So anybody who was alive then, they saw 2 world wars, the Great Depression, that Dust Bowl. And
you just naming stuff. That Dust Bowl.
Probably the biggest thing that relates to this is the the Roaring '20s were just laden in sin.
They saw the sin of the century.
And so there was this big perception that the world was becoming a much more sinful place because there's all this like pain and bloodshed and just promiscuity. Promiscuity.
Yeah.
Prom. You think that's where prom got its name?
I think it's...
You think they named prom after promiscuity because they were like, I mean, they knew what was going to happen. They're like, let's call it prom.
Let's move on from that joke. Let's move on from that one.
I think that's where it came from. Patent pending.
Okay. You stress me out sometimes, dude.
There's this growing move of people who were just like, the world is going mad and everybody's awful.
Yeah.
Which I think happens in every generation all the time. So there was this kind of impending feeling of societal collapse, right?
Oh, yeah.
And coinciding with this was also this feeling of urbanization has reached this fever pitch, and it has never happened before. All of a sudden, cities are getting overcrowded. And at this time, it's still... the freeway and the sprawl is still a very new thing for cities. Mm-hmm. And so it's starting to get to the point where...
Because everyone's got cars and stuff.
They do have cars, but it's still early enough in that to where there's not the sprawl. So they're running out of space in the cities because a lot of people can't commute yet because there's no freeway. The freeway system's still very young, and a lot of cities don't have it yet. And so there's this kind of impending feeling of we're running out of space. We have more people than we have room for.
And the people on the edge of town are looking at the fields across the street, and they're like, look at all that space. And they turn around, the people in the middle are like, where's all the space? Bro, I feel like every time I like go through like Wyoming, and people are like, we're running out of space. And I go, well, no, you just don't want to live in Wyoming.
Yeah, you just don't like the places where there's space.
Yeah, you don't like the place that there's room for you.
You want to be squeezed in with everybody.
What was that?
Squeeze me in.
You just want to be like, so they're panicking a little bit.
So there's kind of these two big pressures.
Well, I mean, you know that London.
Yeah.
Did you know that London is very close to the same square miles as what?
Are you about to tell me a fact I told you?
No, I'm about to tell you a fact that me and Reagan discovered.
I told you this fact on the podcast in the hot tub.
That London
yes.
Go ahead and tell me the fact you think I'm going to share with you.
London is about the same amount of square miles as Springfield, Missouri.
Well, that's not what I was going to say. All right, I was going to say it's about the same square miles as Wichita, Kansas. All right, how about that? You did not tell me that in that episode.
Connor, put that clip in.
Connor, which one of us pays you? Neither of us. Okay, so how about you don't listen to either of us? You don't take orders from us, all right?
London, 3,300 square miles. The Springfield Metro includes probably Mount Vernon, Branson. So the whole anywhere where
includes
people
all that. It includes Nixa, Republic,
definitely
Ozark,
definitely. But anyways, 3,000 square miles. So
15 million people crammed there
could live in that area.
All right, listen, if you told me that in that episode, I guarantee here's what happened then, all right? Because Reagan told me that more recently, I think.
Yeah, because she probably heard it in that episode.
She probably heard it in that episode, and then...
She's been telling you facts she got from our show, and you haven't noticed.
She has been, you know what, and it's pretty interesting. She told me about this. You're not going to believe this. She told me about this guy that jumped out of a plane once, stole all this money, right? It was like CBD or something like CB Duper. That's what I think that's why everyone's like, CBD, you know? Isn't that what that is?
Yeah, he started an oil company. Big fuel tycoon.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm saying, so their solution to the running out of space thing was to go up.
Well, kind of. I think London, one of the big things with London is it's always been here. And so it's been around for much longer. And so they didn't have, for much of its history,
Did London exist at the same time as Jesus?
I mean, I think there might have been a town there. I don't think it was a big deal.
That was a thought I had when I was out there in Sequoia Park. I just become a nature guy.
Yeah.
Just become one of those dudes. Think about getting a Subaru.
Actually,
was it?
Well, it was settled, depending on where you date the birth of Jesus, about 20 to 30 years after Jesus. So pretty close. So it's a really old town. And so they didn't have the opportunity to sprawl because they didn't have cars.
Was Springfield, Missouri around?
Yeah,
during the Jesus times?
Springfield was actually founded 20 years before Jesus.
Wow. Depending on where you put Jesus.
Depending on where you put Jesus.
Yeah.
And actually, what's crazy,
I heard he started
Lambert's was there first.
Lambert's was out there.
Was 100 years
Lewis
before
and Clark headed out on their adventure, and they were like,
if only someone could throw some rolls out.
That's how it started. They were throwing rolls into the river to Lewis and Clark.
They were just bored, throwing their food away for their journey. They're like, man, hopefully this journey doesn't take a long time because we...
Wait, Lewis and Clark were throwing the food away? I was saying that Lambert's was on the banks of the river throwing Lewis and Clark rolls, and you were going with they're just like, we're so bored, let's throw our food overboard. What? You ever been on a road trip, You get that snack bag, right? And then you're just you're like, I bet I can catch this Funyun on the antenna of the car next to us. Here we go. And so you're just disc tossing Funyuns on the interstate. You ever been that bored? You know what I'm talking about? Has that ever happened to you? So what do they do about the crowding stuff?
Yeah, so everyone's freaking out about this. And this guy, John B. Calhoun, he was like, well, I'm going to do an experiment and see what happens if we let this play out. And so what he did is he got a bunch of rats.
Mm-hmm. Mice.
No, rats.
Oh.
Later it was mice.
Okay.
Started out with rats. Well, first it was bats, but they flew out of the enclosure.
It's like, oh, they can get away.
And
this experiment works for vampires.
So he set up this big enclosure that was separated into 4 sides.
Okay.
So there's 4 sides of it. And in between the sides, there is a cross in the middle for each of the sides of an electric fence. So 4 corners, electric fence separating all of them.
So it's a square.
Yes.
With 4 squares inside.
Yes. And then separating them is an electric fence.
Okay.
On the bottom 3, there is a big bridge that goes up over the electric fence, but just one. So there's from the top right corner to the bottom right corner to the bottom left corner to the top right, but there's not one, or just the top.
When
left,
you're saying top, this is laying on, like, if it's on this table.
Yes.
The angle you're looking at, it's not like it's upright.
No, it's not upright.
Yeah,
it's laying flat. So
okay.
But then the top left and top right are not connected by a bridge.
Okay.
So you can only go.
They only have
that
so you have to go down and around to get to. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so what he did is he did minor things to set up, if you will, better places to live. So there was, like, for example, in the top left corner, the nesting space was at the top of this ramp, but the ramp was significantly taller than all the other ones. All of them had ramps, but this one was really, really tall.
Okay.
So a little inconvenient because you had to go up. You had to carry your couch all the way up there.
Right.
Where everybody else could just carry it right in the door.
Yeah. Got to get helpers.
Yeah. But the bigger impact was the food supply.
How big is this?
I don't know exactly. Like, probably room size. I don't know. It's not huge.
Interesting.
But big enough to where you could have a few dozen rats in each section. So decent size.
Decent size. Not on top of a table.
No, definitely not tabletop. Like room size at least.
Okay.
And so, but the bigger impact was in 2 of the sections. There was feeders that were feeding full-size pellets, and in 2 of the sections there was feeders that were feeding powder. And so there was a clear difference in food and a clear difference in nesting zonage that they had. Initially, it began to where everything kind of worked normal. Like the rats were all going across the bridge and interacting with each other and getting food from the pellets, getting food from the powder. Over time, though, as more generations of these rats were born into their habitation.
How long did this experiment last?
Oh, a long time, a couple years.
Oh, wow.
As more rats got born into it,
They got more territorial?
and they got more population to it, a few really interesting things started happening. So there was what he described as like the beta males of the population would wake up really early, way before sunrise, and they would cross the bridges, and they would go to where the pellets were and try to gather as many of the pellets as they could and bring them back to their side of the bridge before everybody else woke up. Once the alphas woke up, they would go stand guard on the bridges and not let anybody get past them into their section of the habitation. And so that was why that happened. They all started being like, well, we got to get up before they do and go get all of our pellets.
The same thing happens now. You see these dudes with like tribal tattoos on their arms standing on bridges around town. You know,
don't go to my side of the bridge.
The alpha bros out there.
There's another bridge right down the street.
And they just like got a little boom box and they're blaring old Joe Rogan episodes, you know, and they're just like freaking alpha, bro.
From before it was like produced, like episode 20 of Joe Rogan podcast.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And it's like really bad audio quality. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Simultaneously.
Do you think alpha bros listen to our show?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either. If you're listening to this, that's the most beta thing about you. I hate that language, dude. I hate all those people who do that.
Yeah, me too.
To me, in my head, like, I don't use that language, but the dudes with like tribal tats who do use that language, like they call other people beta males.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, that's the most beta male behavior. You know what I'm talking about? Like, if you gotta like tell me how much more powerful you are than other people, I feel like
that's pretty not powerful.
You're a weak little twerp.
You're a weak little twerp.
And I will punch you in the face over some full-size pellets, okay?
I want the full pellets.
You know, at TILLN, we're not just a podcast. We're a ministry. And our hope is to continue to reach more people with the light and the joy of the Lord. Because remember, at the center of all this, the core of who we are, our main objective is to fiddle off the devil. If you want to help support us in that ministry, please join us on Patreon, where you'll get ad-free episodes, exclusive merchandise, a Discord channel where we can discuss everything you want to talk about, your dreams, your ideas, your problems. Text TILLN to 66866. Do you feel that relief? Anyway, here's another advertisement.
There were larger rats that would then stand guard and make sure that no one could get into their.
Yeah, they started hoarding the food.
But there's little Robin Hood rats
that were just climbing over the
Robin
fences.
Hood rats.
Oh gosh,
who would run over?
Getting shocked for everybody else and throwing it over the fence.
Yeah.
No, that didn't happen.
Oh.
Another interesting thing happened. The taller the nesting enclosure, the worse the parenting became, because it got harder for them to get up there and take care of their young. And so they found that the mothers of the rats that were in the lower enclosures would do everything that rats would typically do to rear their children. But in the taller ones, it was almost as if they were conserving energy because they didn't have as much food. And so they would come up, and they said that when they would move the rats around, they would often just kind of scatter them. They wouldn't move them all together. They would just kind of toss them around wherever they ended up, and they wouldn't feed all of them. Like, they would only partially take care of them and do the bare minimum possible, and then like get out of there, which was very, very odd. And so after seeing this result, his preliminary thought was, there's something interesting happening here when the population got too big to sustain itself. Behavior got really, really out of whack. They broke into smaller groups, and they got really territorial. And they also simultaneously started looking out for themselves more than they started looking out for the whole.
The rats did?
Yeah. So
you said people.
I personified the rats. These were actually people.
Yeah, that's what I thought. At the end, you're gonna be like, "Hey, this whole time, I've been talking about rats.
The rats were people.
The rats were.
They're people with the little hats, the little rat ears, like the.
Why would they make them do that? Why would
They're
they
like,
do
you're a
that?
rat.
Why would that
day-
need to be part of the experiment?
Every day an experiment
People
came
are
and
like,
said, you're a rat.
I want to find out a lot about human
You're
behavior, but I
right.
also want to demean them as much as possible.
Eat these pellets, you rat.
Yeah, we fed them pellets and protein powder, and then we were surprised when they were like foaming at the mouth, animalistic,
We were surprised
biting
when
each
they
other.
were crazy.
We were like, "This is wild. This is definitely because we made the nests too high." Not because
we told them,
we've been
"Have
looking at
babies
people.
in these nests."
Yeah, here's a nest for you. Yeah, I can't believe these people.
And so he was like, okay. He had all these thoughts about how, as it overpopulated, things got crazy.
Yeah,
But then he said, well, you know what? He said, I did kind of influence this. He's like, I made some of their living conditions worse. And I made it to where there were these kind of, these bottleneck points for fights to happen. I mean, those rats were like killing each other on the bridges.
jeez,
Trying to
throwing
get
them into the electric fence.
Yeah.
Hey,
he's like,
Christine. That's a Natalia Barnett reference. Pushing her into electric fence.
I was trying to think of a way to make Christine merge with rat. I was like, what names have rat in it?
What?
What names? Rattly?
Hey, Rachel.
They all changed their name. Okay, anyways. So
Rattly. I hate that.
So Calhoun was like, okay, how can I take as much of my influence out of this experiment as possible? So he went and he found this farmer. And he told the farmer, he said,
Put on these ears.
you're a rat farmer now. Can you snicker for me?
You're like, oh, okay. That's weird, but it'll work.
No, he went to this farmer and he was like, hey, can I use some of your land for an experiment? I know everyone's freaking out about everyone losing space, but can I use some of your space? And the farmer was like, sure, you can run an experiment on my land. Like, there's some wooded areas over there to do whatever you need to do. He didn't expect Calhoun to chop down a bunch of trees and build an acre long, like square acre enclosure for mice. And the farmer was just like, well, I mean, I did tell him he could do it.
I mean, I guess technically I said yes to this. You just hear him out there at 3 a.m. just hammering stuff. Just and the rat farmer's wife is like, honey. That's how they communicate to each other. We gotta put little captions underneath these. That's him going, I made a commitment. We're following through.
That's yes,
Don't
honey.
you give me that attitude. Right. I hear the tone in your clicks.
In your clicks. So he builds this much, much larger enclosure.
Yeah. For mice, which are smaller.
Yeah, he got mice this time.
He's like, I can fit more of these in here.
And he put a few dozen groups together. And he didn't do anything different. Like he set up a bunch of random food spots.
All 4 were the same.
And there wasn't 4 separate sections. So it was one massive open container.
Okay.
And then he put a few food, what do you call those things? Where it's like you put the food in it.
Feeders?
Yeah, feeders. He put a few feeders, all the same food. There was nothing in it that was like, okay, there's room for inequality here, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And he built a bunch of like nesting zones that were like same height, whatever. So there's no room for any of them to get stuck with.
Is it enclosed over top?
I don't know, actually.
Are there like
there's a dome with a fake sky on it.
Well,
The stars
no,
go
I'm
around
saying
it.
like we're
some of the mice
predators
are standing on the street and they're like flat dome or flat enclosure. They're flat enclosures. So guys are like, no, this is a globe.
The sky's not real.
They're like, I've been to the end of the enclosure. There's a wall.
So anyway, it's the True Mice show. And so, but I'm saying like, were there predators in there at all?
No. So it's just the mice. They were the only ones in there.
Okay.
So
I would imagine it's probably enclosed then, yeah.
Because it's just an acre on this farmer's land.
Yeah. How are you going to keep like hawks and stuff out?
Yeah. So it must be enclosed. But But there's no like pictures or videos of this experiment anywhere. You can't find them.
He made
They
it
hit
up.
'em.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you prove you did this experience? Well, I don't know. Ask the rat farmer.
Yeah, the rat farmer has a pretty good.
Yeah,
can
rat
tell you
farmer
about
skipped town. So
So he puts all these mice in there, and over the first about year, every 100 days or so, they would double in population. But they stayed pretty grouped up into almost families. So groups of rats that were reproducing together stuck together, and they kind of stayed on their own thing and got food from the same place, nested in the same place, and kind of were separate from each other.
Sure.
But after about a year, their multiplication doubled. So every 50 days, they were doubling. The whole population was doubling. And when that happened, some interesting things started to happen. One, the beta males started to arise again. And so there was this structure of the alphas and the betas. And the betas, what the betas did is they, for some reason, just all packed together in the center of this acre-wide enclosure. And they just kind of stuck together in the middle there and never really went out. Every once in a while, the alphas, for no clear reason, would just come bite them and then just leave. And so they had this little spot where the rest of society just
How's he observing all this?
I mean,
He's watching from the
stood
wall
over the wall
with a little like just like, and then takes notes, and it's just like
beta, weak little betas.
Yeah. Alpha males drove their large trucks over to the center of the like.
Alpha males opened a Ford plant. And so, and what was interesting is they just kind of lived in this state of constant fear. They seemed very jumpy, very skittish.
The beta males?
Yeah.
In the center.
In that center. And they just stayed in that center. So afraid to the point that on occasion, something would happen and they would freak out on each other. And so they would just kind of brawl each other. And oftentimes it would kind of be this everyone against one mentality. So one person would make a sudden movement and everyone would just kind of mob them. And that one would just kind of lay down and just take the beating until it was over. And then they would just kind of chill together again. Like they would just, that was their life.
And that one was just like, okay.
This is my life now.
What were the alpha males doing? They were just like watching them.
Yeah, so the alphas kind of split.
But were they beta males killing each other in the middle?
No, they were just beating the tar out of each other on occasion, just because they got spooked. Like they weren't like malicious towards each other, but like someone would make a sudden movement, and everyone would be like, "Get him!" And then they'd be like, "Oh, that's Tom." Sorry, man. And it's like, it's okay. I knew you guys would notice eventually.
I thought you were one of those other ones. Okay.
The alphas,
let's just go back to being a herd in the middle.
The alphas split into these different groups as well. And they are very...
There's like gangs.
Yeah, they're a very odd selection of alphas.
You know?
So there was... let's just go down the line. There was a group of cannibals that there was no reason for them to. There was plenty of food. But for some reason, they would just go eat other mice. Like they would find them and they would kill them and they would eat them. And there was no reason for it whatsoever. He was very perplexed by that behavior. They were kind of the most feared people in the whole place.
No way.
So
there's a group of cannibals. There's
a group of sexual deviants. And so these were people who they started.
You gotta quit saying people, dude. you gotta clarify that these are mice. Okay. You keep saying these are people who just went and ate each other. Like you're giving too much personality to these mice.
So there was this group of mice that initially...
legally, you have to say mice.
So there's this group of mice that for some reason, they stopped mating for reproduction.
Yeah.
They just constantly wanted to mate. And they had no preference of who their partner was.
Okay.
And male, female, adult, it didn't matter. They were just going around and finding people to just do their sexual deviation with. Finding mice.
Like, dude,
they were finding the research. It was the researchers.
You keep saying it. You look down and there's a little mouse on your toe. And you're like, get out of here.
Oh, it's one of the deviants.
Get out of here, you deviant. So there's that group.
Yeah, and then there's the cannibals. In response, there's the recluses. And so a bunch of them.
Recluses. Calhoun's recluses.
So they built. So they had the nesting buildings, but these guys they dug tunnels and they lived in these tunnels and they would only come out to eat and drink.
They could have dug underneath the fence and got out.
Did an underground dome as well. That was why some of them thought it was a round Earth.
Okay.
They reached the underground dome. So some of them dug, and they would only come out to eat or drink, and then they would go hide in their tunnels again.
Okay.
And so, because they were like, society, I can't be a part of this society anymore.
Yeah.
Mice are crazy out there. And then a lot of the women in the society, a lot of the female mice in the society.
Women. Yeah. No, I get it. It's mice, but okay.
They stopped journeying down out of the nest. They stayed in the nest 24/7. They camped out as literally the way the researcher states it is, he said they camped out in their apartments. And so they stayed up in the apartments.
So now they're just house mice.
Yeah. If they were lucky, they had one of those males that would bring them food. Most of them didn't. So the majority of the litters started dying out because they didn't have
because they just didn't
nutrition.
leave.
Yeah, because the mothers wouldn't leave because it was too dangerous. They would leave and they had to worry about the cannibals, the deviants, and the betas who, if you spook them, they just maul you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so society for these rats got really, really crazy for a while. And it didn't happen until the population got really, really big. There was still plenty of food. There was still a good amount of space. But for some reason, once the population hit a certain point, behaviors hit a fever pitch. And so his theory was that if there is too much population, an event that he termed behavior sink occurs, where animals, and his theory is maybe people, would then begin to deviate their behavior. So you would have things like the sexual deviance,
right?
You have things like cannibalism, and then poor parenting, reclusion, and then huddling into groups like yours, and then fighting each other and infighting, as a response to this dangerous world around you, I guess. So behavioral sink became this kind of poster child phrase that people in that culture were using because they looked to the world around them. It's the same thing as
mob mentality.
Yeah, right? Kind of. And so they just looked to the world around them and they said, hey, these cities are getting bigger and bigger, and the lifestyles in those cities are getting worse and worse. And so a lot of people started to believe that behavioral sink was a real phenomenon that was happening in humans.
In human, people start think that behavior sink happened in human.
There was this podcast that one of the mice started in their society. And the guy was like, you gotta stop calling them mice. You need to call them humans.
Come on, man. Gotta call them human.
And so the expectation was that when you overpopulate, you affect behavior.
Yeah.
And then people begin to do things.
And the only solution. You're so nervous. What is the solution, Tim?
So here's the thing.
He's like, well, the only solution is to kill half of these mice.
Calhoun never provided a solution.
Interesting. Okay, he only provided, here's the research.
His research.
Okay.
What he did say is he said when, over time, as new generations couldn't survive, only a couple of the litters were surviving, and then everyone's getting cannibalized and killed by each other out in the streets, eventually population started to decline. And he said after it declined, after about a year of this decline and it normalized, behavior started to become a little bit more regular.
Hey, have you ever heard of TILLN merchandise? That's right. We've got a full store of branded tees, mugs, hoodies, stickers, a lot more. All of it's available online. If you just text TILLN to 66866, we'll send you a link for all of that. And we put out new designs with every episode, but those are only available for a limited time, so get them while they're hot.
So things level out eventually.
Things leveled out eventually.
Our population is decreasing. Is it? Okay.
No, it's pretty well increasing still.
Oh, really? Stop having kids. Quit it.
Quit it. You're going to make cannibals.
Listen to my voice. Yeah, your kids are either going to be cannibals or be cannibalized. This is...
Or they're going to live in a hole.
Facts don't care about your feelings, okay? This is real. No. I feel like there's too many anxious people who listen to our show. That's not going to happen. You're fine.
So in the 70s...
As long as you don't eat people, please don't eat people.
So this was widely accepted as hey, if we have too many people are going to go crazy.
Yeah.
And the...
I mean, there are people in small towns who still think that about cities.
Yeah. Because it is true. Like, you get that many people together. Like, there are deviants in any society, but you get a big enough place where you get enough of them together, there are going to be a lot of people who have deviant behavior and do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot more cannibals in the city than there are in a small town, just because of per capita things,
You think there's Kansas City cannibals?
Oh, 100%. There are people in the city that eat each other. Guaranteed.
Stop it.
I don't doubt it. There are people in Minneapolis.
There's nobody
here.
here.
In Des Moines.
No, there's nobody here who eats anybody.
Cleveland. Cleveland has a lot of cannibals. It's in the sea, you know. They're trying to the sea names.
Canton, Ohio.
A lot of cannibals.
Hannibal, Missouri.
A lot of cannibals.
Like,
they named the city Cannibal, and the guys were like,
so
this is too obvious.
We're not going to get any new produce that moves in. We're not going to get any.
Add an H. They're like, Channibal?
I hate everything about you. Okay.
So in the 70s, deviance is at an all-time high. You're having things like Woodstock and Firefest and...
Okay.
And people are doing...
What was that one that we talked about?
Marijuana,
I don't know.
The ice cream social. There's just...
Debauchery
abounds.
everywhere.
And so everyone's thinking... It's
during the Roaring 70s.
The Roaring 70s. Everyone's thinking, oh man, this psychologist was right back in the 60s. But psychologist Jonathan Freedman said, nah, I don't think so. I think there was something else going on there. So he said, I'm going to up the ante. He said, I'm going to get a bunch of high schoolers. I'm going to put rat ears on their head. I'm going to put them in an enclosure for a couple years and see what happens. So he got a bunch of high school students and...
he really did get high school students.
A bunch of high school students and university students.
And then went to that same farmer and said, do you still have that enclosure?
He said, hey, can I use a little bit of space on your land? And he built a high school.
The farmer was talking to his wife, and he was like...
He was like, think about all the food in the lunchroom. We won't have to farm anymore. We can just take it from the lunch lady.
We can get the government pellets. Those public school pellets.
And so he set up a situation where he was just monitoring them at school. So they just went to school, high schoolers and university students, and he monitored their behavior.
He's just walking around the hallways, like hiding in lockers and stuff. Like he's just in a locker taking notes.
With like eye holes cut out of the locker.
People are doing their little combinations, and right next to it, he's sitting there, and someone's doing their combination, and they can't get it, and he's like, it's 32. And he's...
That was the moment that guy became a Christian.
Yeah, that guy...
I met God. He told me the
Someone's-
last number in my locker combo.
That's my testimony. If it wasn't for him, I'd still be at that locker today.
Yeah, I wouldn't have...
So he's just he's dressing up as a janitor. He's got a fake mustache walking around. You know,
sweeping stuff.
a kid throws up on the ground and he's just like with a broom, not even mopping it, just with a broom, just like because he doesn't know how to janitor. You know, he doesn't know how to do janitorial
He went
things.
to psychology school, not janitor school. He would.
Yeah,
janitor junior college.
that's exactly what it is. Yeah, and he's just over there, and the kids are walking by, and he's just.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long did it take for cannibals to show up at the high school?
Only a couple months. So he measured their stress, their discomfort, how competitive they became, and how unpleasant they were.
Did he have to do like interviews with them? How was he measuring those things?
I don't know. He was monitoring the behavior is what it says. So I don't know what that means. Yeah, I think you might be closer to reality. And then after
they probably knew he was doing it. I don't really think he was hiding and like just watching him from a distance. Like I think he was probably asking,
some questions. And so after he studied, and so what he did is he studied smaller schools and bigger schools to see the difference in the size of the population in the school and how it affected the behavior of the students. And he didn't find any connection in the size of the school. And so what he said after his research concluded, he said Calhoun's work was not simply about density in a physical sense, as a number of individuals per like square unit of whatever surface area. He said, but it was about degrees of social interaction. And so he says he thinks what was happening was in his mice experiment, he said there was, as the population grew, there was more deviance in that society, and those deviants began to take over. It was not as much of because population grew, everybody started to deviate. He said that because population grew, there was more of an opportunity for deviance, and then those deviants grouped together, and unfortunately, there was no sort of ruling group that could quell the deviants. The deviants just kind of took over. They were like barbarians invading the town and doing whatever they wanted with it. In the high schools, he said that there's no connection to that. You had the same per capita rate of people behaving or being competitive or stressing or whatever. But there was a group that could control them that helped limit that.
Yeah.
So he was like,
they have a principal.
More. Yeah. He was like, we need more.
Would you
principals.
believe it? Is a giant rat, right? The only way to control the humans was to have a giant rat
running around the high school.
I'll tell you what.
This isn't like an anamorphic rat. This is
all
real
fours,
6 feet tall.
Giant
just
rat.
running through the halls.
Tell me right now, would you respect a pale white guy in his 50s? All right, who used to be a history teacher, worked his way through the ranks of that small school.
Doesn't quite reach the end of his lip.
Doesn't all the way. And he's got blueberry muffin crumbs in it, You respect that guy? Or do you respect a giant rat?
Yeah, man. Mr. Mouse came into the classroom the other day, and Danny was smoking a joint, and he ate him. So don't cross Mr. Mouse. He's a rat.
Do it.
But he goes by Mr. Mouse, and I don't know if he goes by that because all he does is go... And then eats kids.
We don't actually know his name. We gave him that name. That's probably why he's eating us.
I'm a rat.
He's actually the headline speaker at the Teachers Association because the ACT scores have skyrocketed. I mean, like
kids are doing great.
Yeah.
You should see him in his suit he got.
Yeah, because he goes. And they're like, wow, dude, like if we get below a 33 on this, he's literally going to eat our entire families.
He's gonna eat us.
So,
he's going to eat us all.
Yeah. But he drives a really cool like Mercedes. Yeah. Drives that home.
Exactly. He's got a Mercedes.
Then he gets in.
His tail goes up and out the opposite end passenger door. It's just flopping. He's got the window rolled out, but it's just like pinched in the door.
I think he carries a briefcase to demand respect, There's nothing in it.
It's full of cheese.
There's nothing in it. It's full of cheese.
The briefcase is full of normal sized rats.
He goes home to his nest,
In the farm.
Yeah. Talk about alpha males. I'll tell you what. He's up there.
So Calhoun's conclusions were basically, if we let population get too big, we're going to have a lot of bad people in the world.
Freeman's conclusions
were there will
there's
always
just
be
a
bad
percentage.
people.
Yeah.
The higher population you have.
Now, if those can band together, that's when it's dangerous.
Yeah, and he
which
said
is great because there's Facebook groups full of them.
I mean, true. But his point was more, Freeman's point was more, you have to have people who will stand up to them.
Yeah, you got to have.
If everybody just hides in their circle in the center of the group, goes up in their apartments or digs holes and hides in the holes, then the deviants will rule society. But
that is my, like, that's what I think. Like, I think we have institutions that do that, hold people accountable, right? Mm-hmm. But as the trust in institutions crumbles, which it is, you know, the people don't trust the justice system to deliver justice, you know?
And I think the issue with that is in a lot of those situations, deviants start working their way into those organizations that are supposed to be holding people accountable.
Yeah. Right. And so as that accountability and that trust is gone, and also there's social media. This is where I make this joke all the time of your crazy uncle at Thanksgiving used to be just your crazy uncle with his weird ideas.
Yeah.
But now he's in a Facebook group with 10,000 other crazy uncles, and they're just reinforcing each other's ideas.
Exactly.
And they're like, maybe we should go out and eat people. You know?
That's kind of where Freeman takes it. Freeman's like, you see that the cannibal group got really big because they ate everybody else. And they had all the power. That beta group in the middle,
it's kind of like maybe I should start eating people to fit in with the people who are eating people.
Exactly. Like those behaviors became, if you wanted to succeed in that society that birthed inside Calhoun's experiment, was you had to start eating other mice, or you had to become a sexual deviant, or you just had to hide out. Those were kind of your options. And so it became a matter of survival of, well, what am I going to be?
Who am I really?
Who am I? Am I a cannibal? Am I a sexual deviant? Or am I going to hide in a hole?
Which one would you do?
I mean, I'll say when I was in high school, I wanted a bunker so bad.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was saying. I know you're a bunker guy.
This went off the rails fast.
Yeah. So how long was the high school observations?
I don't know. I think a couple years. I think he watched them through.
So then what conclusions can we walk away with? Is there any, like, because I mean, it feels like they're both just like, the other person was kind of wrong.
Well, yeah, I think the bigger thing.
Deviants exist. There's no hope there.
Yeah. I think with Freedman, Freedman's the conclusion you have to take, because I think Calhoun's experiment was interesting to watch that. Yeah. The deviants kind of took over their society.
But he is right. There is no power structure. There's no systems that can exist. That is a difference between humans and animals as well, as our ability to make systems.
Yeah.
And our ability to override our desires.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you have a desire to punch someone in the face, but you can go, no, that's not productive.
No, I'm not going to do that.
You know?
That doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you have to look at Freeman's results, because one, I mean, he did actually study people, not nice people.
Not people dressed as mice.
Not people dressed as mice. Who were belittled every day into thinking you're a mouse.
You're a mouse. And you're a deviant mouse too. Like, you're not even a good mouse.
Deviant mouse.
I just need someone to tell me I'm a good mouse. You know? Deviant Mouse.
Mouse sounds like a 2000s blog, like a 2000s forum.
Deviant Mouse sounds like a disgruntled ex-Disney employee who then goes online and starts a whole forum for people who are trying to take down Disney. You know? It's like, share your horror stories of working for Disney, right? And it's deviantmouse.com. It's a whole forum of people who are like, oh my gosh, man, I was the person in the Mickey suit, and they would force me to eat all the other mascots. Like, you're a kid.
Eat Goofy.
Bro, Epcot was super weird when they first started it. Have we done it? We haven't done an episode about Epcot.
No, we haven't. I thought about it. Yeah. There was actually also a cannibal mouse group that was run by the shift managers. That was like, who eating?
Not real cannibalism.
Yeah.
They were just trying to get people fired.
Yeah.
But you know.
So I think
I don't even
we
know
need to look at Freedman, though, because Freedman actually
You keep saying
people.
Freedman?
It's Freedman. There's a D.
Okay.
Yeah, Freedman.
You keep switching between Freeman and Freedman.
No, just sometimes the D is a little less pronounced.
Okay. No, I hate everything. Go ahead.
Because one, he studied humans, not mice. But two, he noted that, hey, there was no real connection in the size of the group.
Okay.
But it was his theory is that it's more of the social structures outside the deviant groups
To control the deviants, yeah.
Exactly. So if there's a structure
So
in place,
if society allows deviant behavior, then it will continue.
Then it will
But as long
control.
as society says this is not okay,
yeah. So you
then-
point to things like Las Vegas.
right?
There's a place where deviant behavior is allowed, and deviant behavior
Is encouraged.
happens a lot.
Yeah.
But you go to places like, I don't know.
Hull, Iowa,
Yeah.
small town. You
Deviant
say it.
behavior.
You say the S word, which to them is shut up. You say that, and people go,
Excommunicated.
you know, I'm telling you. Though, you know.
Yeah. So it's the social structure that controls the deviants, not the size of the
Sure.
the social
And
group.
mice don't have social structure.
No. So they just either were killed or be killed, basically, as their society grew too big. But to leave it, Calhoun's one big conclusion, he said that he thinks that the fate of population as it grows too big is that of Revelation 2:11, where where it talks about how there is a second death. And so the social breakdown of society is the spiritual death, and it's the first death, and that's what we saw happen in the mouse. The second death is the bodily death of the people, and he says our society has already experienced its first death because of the collapse of.
Are you joking, or is this
morals.
what he said?
No, this is what he said.
Okay, I thought you were doing. I thought because your tone of voice shifted to.
No, he was serious. I just didn't take it seriously.
Okay. Okay. So he says that we're headed toward a second death.
Well, I mean, everybody's always headed towards dying.
Yeah,
To
this
him-
is a hopeful episode. I love this.
Well, no, the hope is.
I love that
now-
someone can listen to this and they can get into this episode and they go, man,
Here's the hope.
future's great.
Here's the hope. When your friends do bad stuff, call them out on it. That was Freedman's point. Is
Okay.
if you have people around you who suck, tell them to stop it. That's what keeps sucky people from taking over.
Okay.
Is stand up to it. So yeah, there's the moral of the story.
Cool.
If you're ever in, I don't know, Los Angeles,
Okay.
and there's a man running down the street with
Being chased by a giant rat. You step in front of that rat and you go, no. You go, right? You
be really
you
careful though.
s-
Be really careful though, because you gotta go.
You bite your
Not-
fingers off.
Because is eat me.
What?
Is no. Is eat me. So listen to the difference.
Eat me?
No. Eat me. Be very careful.
No. I hear it. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
Also, you could also, instead of no, no would be right. But if you added a third, that's fiddle off.
Question. Hey, thanks for watching Things I Learned Last Night. If you like this video, we have others you can watch, or we have highlights some of our favorite moments from shows. Please make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any future episodes. And leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week on Things I Learned Last Night.